Gasoline and diesel prices at domestic gas stations have risen for the first time in 6 weeks, driven by escalating geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, with experts projecting that rising global oil prices will push domestic fuel costs even higher this week.
국내 주유소의 휘발유와 경유 가격이 6주 만에 상승세로 전환했습니다. 이는 이란과 이스라엘 교전으로 중동 리스크가 커진 데에 따른 것으로 전문가들은 국제유가가 상승하면서 이번 주 국내 주유소 판매 가격도 더 오를 것으로 전망했습니다.
Yeah, this was expected, and we'll get to the reason why in just a moment. But according to OPINET, that's the information system run by the state-run oil corporation, KNOC, oil prices, or gas prices, have risen 7.81 compared to last week to 1,635 won. That's the average price. Diesel prices are also up about 7.61 as well. And of course, geopolitical risks in the Middle East following clashes between Iran and Israel are raising concerns over potential supply disruptions in the Middle East. So you're going to expect prices at the pump to probably go up in the coming weeks if it hasn't already. South Korea, they benchmark their oil prices to Dubai crude. There's also like West Texas crude oil as well. But Dubai crude also jumped $6.60 from the previous week to $74.70. And an official at the Korea Petroleum Association projects these trends to continue depending on how things proceed in the Middle East.
Now, normally, it takes a little bit of time for the effect to actually show itself here in Korea, right? So it's not going to be immediate, but we will see the effects.
Yeah, but for us consumers, it feels like when global oil prices go up, they go up immediately, but when they go down, local gas stations, they take their time in lowering the price. I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly does feel like that.
Right. Let's have a look at the word 주유소 in English, which is gas station for North Americans, and petrol station for people in the UK. So domestic gas station?
Yeah, so domestic here to contrast with international global oil prices. I think this headline used the word domestic, meaning something that occurs inside a particular country as opposed to something that's foreign or international. So just to distinguish between international oil prices, we're talking about domestic prices at gas stations, or just a generic term would be filling stations, I think you can call it. But depending on where you're from, petrol station, gas station, filling station, they all mean the same thing.
Yeah, because when you go to the 주유소, or the gas station, to 주유, I guess, in English you would say you fill up the tank, or you fill her up. You use the word fill.
Yes.
So that's why filling station, I guess, makes sense.
And more we're seeing these self-service gas stations here in Korea. There are many reasons for that, but just in terms of that, and when you go to restaurants here, you say like water is self, which of course is Konglish. You would have to say water is self-service.
That's right. Self-service is the English expression. Now, what about the verb to project?
Right, and the verb form, to project, the intonation being on the second syllable, meaning to estimate or to forecast using either trends or data. So the official here projects oil prices to continue to go up.
자, 예상하다라는 동사인데요. PROJECT. 우리 어떤 프로젝트 하다 할 때 그 똑같은 단어이긴 한데 동사입니다. 그래서 예측하다, to forecast, to estimate. 이런 거랑 비슷한 단어죠, to project.
Right, you have those TVs now called beam projectors. Yeah. So if you project something, you're looking forward or you're blaring it out.
Yeah. Do you have one?
No, I'm actually looking into one.
Yeah.
We need a new TV.
Good ones are quite expensive.
They are expensive, but the quality is very good these days,
That's
apparently.
what I hear.
Yeah.
그래요. 국내 주유소, domestic gas stations, 그리고 예상하다, 내지는 추정하다, to project. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Gasoline and diesel prices at domestic gas stations have risen for the first time in 6 weeks, driven by escalating geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, with experts projecting that rising global oil prices will push domestic fuel costs even higher this week. Let's move on to the second headline.
The U.S. has bombed 3 Iranian nuclear sites, bringing the country directly into the Israel-Iran conflict, as President Donald Trump warns Tehran to make peace or face far greater attacks.
미국이 이란의 핵시설 3곳을 직접 타격함으로써 이스라엘과 이란의 분쟁에 직접 개입한 가운데 도널드 트럼프 미국 대통령은 이란을 향해 평화를 구축해야 한다고 촉구하면서 그렇지 않을 경우 더 강력한 공격을 받게 될 것이라고 경고했습니다.
Yeah, this is quite troubling because we've reached a new chapter in this conflict in the Middle East with the U.S. directly intervening. This dominated the headlines over the weekend. President Trump said in a national address that the U.S. carried out these quote-unquote successful bombing attacks at 3 nuclear sites. Now, the full impact of these bombings are still unclear, but what they're calling in this mission is Operation Midnight Hammer, as they called it. They used bunker buster bombs weighing 30,000 pounds delivered by these B-2 stealth bombers. Now, these underground sites were thought to consist of 2 main tunnels that house centrifuges to enrich uranium, which is used to build nuclear bombs. But thankfully, Saudi Arabia and the UN's nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, say there hasn't been an increase in any radiation levels from these attacks. But the scary thing is now what happens next? How will Iran respond to these attacks by the U.S.?
Right. Well, President Trump, as you said, has hailed this as a big success on America's part, but other countries around the world, South Korea included, they're going to be holding emergency meetings to look into how it affects us here in Korea and other places around the world as well. I believe the IAEA will also be holding an emergency meeting to discuss the impact.
Without a doubt. I believe South Korea's presidential office did hold an emergency meeting over the weekend.
I see.
To discuss the impact or the consequences to South Korea. I know residents in the area are being evacuated by many countries as well.
Right. Well, this is definitely not the end of the conflict in Iran and Israel. Let's have a look at this expression here, to bring something into a conflict.
Yeah, so the headline suggests that the U.S. has been brought in, you could say in the passive voice, but the U.S. is now in or directly involved. So when you bring something into something, you become involved or into a situation or a discussion even, you can be.
Bring, 가져오다도 될 수 있고요. 끌어들이다, 데리고 오다 다 됩니다. 이게 뭔가 이렇게 들어오는 느낌인 거죠. So we could say, hey, could you bring some snacks into the studio? We're not allowed any snacks in the studio, but you know, or you could say, oh, bring your own drink. We're going to have a party, and you know, it's BYOB or BYO whatever. You know, so bring your own drink. In this case, the US has brought itself into the conflict. 그래서 미국이 이 이란 이스라엘 conflict 안에 직접 들어오게 된 거죠. 직접 개입을 하게 된 거죠.
Right, exactly. So bringing a drink into the studio would literally be bringing something in.
Sure.
But here in sort of a way, you're becoming involved in something. So it's a little different meaning, but it comes from the same origins.
Exactly. And then the next one is to face something.
Yeah, as a verb, to face something would be to come up against a situation. You're confronting it or dealing with something that's usually difficult or unpleasant.
그래요. face라는 동사는 직면하다라는 뜻이 있죠. 자, 그래서 bring A into B, A를 B로 끌어들이다. 그리고 face는 직면하다. Here's the headline. One more time. Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh, I just wanted to say, let's hope this comes to a peaceful resolution, right? For all.
Yes, indeed. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The US has bombed 3 Iranian nuclear sites, bringing the country directly into the Israel-Iran conflict, as President Donald Trump warns Tehran to make peace will face far greater attacks.
Health officials in the U.S. have warned the public to avoid diuretic drinks such as coffee, soda, and alcohol, which can cause dehydration, as southwestern states like Nevada and California face dangerously high temperatures.
네바다와 캘리포니아 등 미국 남서부 지역 주들의 폭염 경보가 내려진 가운데 미국 보건당국은 커피와 탄산음료, 술 등 이뇨작용이 있어 탈수를 유발할 수 있는 음료의 섭취를 자제할 것을 주문했습니다. Right, so it's very hot all across the world, especially in these US states.
Yeah, I spoke to my sister over the weekend who lives in Los Angeles, and she was saying that there's an extreme heat wave going through the west and southwestern portions of the U.S., states like California, Arizona, and Nevada. And along with warnings such as dehydration, health officials there have warned to avoid these drinks, these so-called diuretics, like, as the headline suggests, coffee, soda, and alcohol, because they can cause dehydration. And residents should actually try to stay indoors, stay hydrated, use sunscreen, and plan outdoor activities during cooler parts of the day, and as opposed to the dead of the afternoon when the sun is at its strongest.
I mean, how hot does it have to be for the country to actually say, be careful of what you drink so that you're not dehydrated?
It gets really hot in states like California and Arizona, where it can reach upwards of 40 degrees Celsius.
Really?
There's a place called Death Valley, California, which is the hottest point in the country, in the U.S., and it exceeds, I think, the mid-40s, well over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. But these warnings are issued by officials to the public. Right? And the public we're talking about here, just ordinary people in general, the community. Oftentimes, you can say the general public, which is sort of redundant because the public is always going to be general, but it's the average person, the masses.
일반 국민, the public, or the general public. So here it says health officials in America have warned the public. 일반 대중들에게 이렇게 경고를 하고 있는 거고요. 그것도 이제 구체적으로 보게 되면은 네바다와 캘리포니아 주에 사는 미국인들이 되겠죠. What have they been warned against? Well, drinking diuretic drinks.
Yeah, so this is the crux of this, right? So a diuretic would be something that causes or helps passing of urine.
Yeah.
So a diuretic drug is a drug that causes the kidneys to actually produce more urine. It helps people get rid of sort of excess fluid and salt in the body, and it's good to treat high blood pressure.
Right.
But these drinks, such as coffee, alcohol, sodas, they make you go to the bathroom more often, which means you're losing liquids in your body, which you need, and you don't want to become dehydrated. So what you want to do is drink water. Water is always the best option instead of going for that, that iced Americano or going for a soda. Water is always the best option.
Exactly. Diuretic. 이거는 이제 이뇨작용과 관련된 단어고요. 형용사 형태입니다. 그래서 diuretic drink라고 하면은 이뇨작용을 유발하는 그런 음료들이 되겠죠. 커피라든지 탄산음료들 마시면은 화장실 더 많이 가게 되고 결과적으로는 수분이 몸에서 빠져나가니까 이런 것보다는 그냥 물을 마시는 걸 더 권장하고 있는 건데요. 이 diuretic 스펠링을 알려주시겠어요?
Sure, it's D-I-U-R-E-T-I-C.
네, 그렇습니다. 가운데 U가 들어가 있죠. 보통 우리가 urine이라고 하면 소변이라는 뜻인데요. 그 단어가 들어가 있어서 이뇨작용이라는 뜻을 같이 기억하시면 좋을 것 같아요.
Right. 비뇨기과 would be urology.
There
right?
you go. Exactly. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Health officials in the US have warned the public to avoid diuretic drinks such as coffee, soda, and alcohol, which can cause dehydration, as southwestern states like Nevada and California face dangerously high temperatures. Let's move on to the next headline.
Several European Union countries are reporting hepatitis A outbreaks, prompting health authorities to advise international travelers to consult a vaccination specialist at least 1 month before visiting affected areas.
유럽연합 내 일부 국가에서 A형 감염 사례가 급격히 늘어나자 보건당국은 해외 여행객들에게 이들 나라를 방문하기 최소 한 달 전에 예방접종 관련 상담을 받을 것을 권고했습니다. Tell us more.
Yeah, so this outbreak is centering in the Eastern European sort of region. Countries like Hungary, Austria, Slovakia, and Germany have all reported high probability of sustained transmission related to hepatitis A or HAV. And of course, hepatitis A is it's a virus, right? It infects the liver,
Right.
And it can be treated usually with vaccines. But what European officials are seeing is this outbreak within specific groups. So if you are planning to travel to these areas, you might want to consult a health specialist to see if you are vaccinated or not and how you can react or prevent a sort of contamination.
Exactly. 자, hepatitis가 간염입니다. 그래서 A형 간염, 영어로는 hepatitis A라고 하죠. 이렇게 질병 이름 중에 끝에 is로 끝나는 것들이 꽤 있어요. Arthritis, bronchitis, gingivitis, tonsillitis 이런 식으로 itis라고 끝나는 질병들이 꽤 있습니다. 하나하나 다 지금은 언급할 필요는 없지만 그래도 이게 같이 알아두시면 좋겠어요. 그래서 딱 들었을 때 무슨 itis가 들리면 아, 몸과 관련된 질환이겠구나 이렇게 추측을 하실 수 있고요. 자, advise people to do something. Let's have a look at that.
Yeah, when you advise someone, what you're doing is you're offering suggestions or information about how to proceed, what the best course of action is. You're recommending something, right?
Yeah. The noun form, as we all know, is advice. But here we're looking at advise with an S.
Right, and those spellings are different, right?
How do you spell this word?
The verb form, advise, would be A-D-V-I-S-E, but the noun form, advice, would be C instead of an S, so A-D-V-I-C-E.
They may look similar, but they sound different.
Yeah.
In Korean, you might go advice, but it's different.
It's completely different.
It's completely different.
Right. When we talk about the weather, you hear about weather advisories, right?
Yes.
We hear that a lot here on this show too.
그렇죠. 주의보 얘기할 때 뭐 호우주의보 그러면은 heavy rain advisory가 되겠죠. 자, advise는 조언하다, advice는 조언. 자, 그다음에 consult.
Yeah, so this would be almost the opposite of advising someone. You're consulting someone, you're seeking information or advice, typically from a professional or someone with expertise in a certain area. So you hear this a lot in commercials, consult a doctor.
Yes.
Right?
이제 이게 상담하다의 뜻이 있죠. 그런데 전문가의 의견을 물어라. 특히 뭐 이제 의사에게 가서 전문 의견을 받아라라고 할 때 영어로는 consult a medical expert라고 많이 합니다. or consult a doctor 해도 되고요.
And the stress is on the second syllable, consult.
That's right.
Yeah.
자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Several European Union countries are reporting hepatitis A outbreaks, prompting health authorities to advise international travelers to consult a vaccination specialist at least 1 month before visiting affected areas. Now let's move on to the final headline.
Brazilian researchers have suggested that the ability to lower yourself to the floor and get back up without using your hands, known as the sitting-rising test, may serve as a predictor of natural and cardiovascular mortality risk.
브라질 연구팀이 손이나 지지대를 쓰지 않고 바닥에 앉았다가 다시 일어나는 능력을 측정하는 일명 앉았다 일어나기 테스트가 자연사 및 심혈관 질환 사망 위험을 예측하는 지표로 활용될 수 있다는 결과를 내놨습니다.
Yeah.
So all of our listeners, you should do this right now. It's very easy.
Not if you're driving, though.
Oh, of course. If you're not driving, then forget it. But if you can, what I want you to do is get into the 양반다리 position, but don't use your hands. Hands free. 그냥 여기서 서 있다가 양반다리로 바닥에 철퍼덕은 아니겠지만 어쨌든 앉으세요. 그러다가 또 역시 손 사용하지 않고 다시 일어나는 거. 이게 바로 앉았다 일어나기 테스트라고 합니다.
Right. So sitting cross-legged on
That's
the
right.
ground and getting up without using your hands, like you said, which you so gracefully demonstrated for me at the beginning of the show.
Before the show, yes, I
You
did.
have a very low risk of mortality, I suppose, and your cardiovascular health is very good.
I wasn't sure if I could do it.
I see. I chose not to try it. I'll try it at home in the comforts of my privacy.
Okay.
But Brazilian authorities, what they did was they scored individuals on how well they were able to do this sitting rising test, and they found that middle-aged and older adults who scored poorly on this had a 3.8-fold higher risk of death from natural causes and a 6-fold higher risk of death from cardiovascular causes over 12 years of follow-up compared with those who got the highest score. So another indicator of whether you are healthy or not, in addition to the many others, the countless others that exist out there.
Right. Well, this may serve as an indicator, as you said, or a predictor. Let's have a look at may serve as.
Right. So if something serves as something, it acts to fill in or to fulfill some sort of purpose. So, for instance, my sofa may serve as a bed. It could be replaced as a bed, or
Sure.
A judge's order may serve as a warning. So the may here is not the important part. It's to serve as something. It means to act as or to function as something.
이런 역할을 할 수 있다. 어떻게 작용할 수 있다. May serve as 이렇게 씁니다. 근데 여기서는요. 앉았다 일어나기 테스트가 어쩌면은 이제 얼마나 오래 살 수 있는지 좀 장수할지 말지를 알려주는 지표가 될 수도 있다라는 얘기죠.
Right.
지표, 아까 indicator도 말씀하셨지만 predictor is another word.
Yeah, it's a synonym of indicator. Predictor would be something that predicts something that will happen in the future. So it's a gauge or a barometer that, of something.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. 그래요. 어떤 예측 변수라고 볼 수 있겠죠. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Brazilian researchers have suggested that the ability to lower yourself to the floor and get back up without using your hands, known as the sitting rising test, may serve as a predictor of natural and cardiovascular mortality risk. All right, well, those are our headlines this morning with Shane.
A recent study finds that Koreans' overall preparedness for retirement, measured across health, finances, relationships and leisure, averages just under 70 out of 100.
최근 연구에서 한국인의 종합적인 노후 준비 수준을 건강, 재무, 대인관계, 여가 등 4개 영역에서 측정한 결과 100점 만점에 평균 70점에도 미치지 못하는 것으로 나타났습니다. Not a very high score then.
No, but good news for those about to retire. It's higher than 5 years ago.
Okay.
5 years ago it was 67.5 points out of 100, so it has gone up. But yes, I think more people will want it to be higher. But still, an improvement is an improvement. And where people are prepared, well, the biggest one is health. 74.5 points they got. Finances was 67.6. Interpersonal relationships 64.9 and leisure 60.3. So we saw the biggest jump in finances. That was a 7.3 increase. So it feels like people are more financially prepared for retirement. However, when it came to interpersonal relationships, and that's like your number of family, friends, or neighbors that you can talk to, that was down by 2.4 points, excuse me.
Right, exactly. I mean, the more aged our society gets, the more prepared we want to be for that time.
Certainly, and I think those of us who are in our 40s should be starting to prepare right now.
Exactly. Well, let's have a look at overall preparedness.
Yes, your preparedness is how ready you are for something, how prepared you are. Do you have everything that you need? Have you planned for what will happen? So we might talk about a government's preparedness for a natural disaster. Every year we have monsoon season, for example. Is the government prepared? What is its preparedness level? And overall means when looking at everything, the totality of all the things put together.
전반적인 것을 overall something something, overall, 그리고 준비 상태, preparedness, 얼마나 준비가 됐느냐. So overall preparedness scored just under 70%, but if we look at the different factors, some are higher, some are lower.
Yes.
What about the word to measure?
If we think about measure in everyday life, if you're cooking, you might measure your ingredients.
Yeah.
So do you need a certain number of grams or a certain number of milliliters or a certain number of cups? But we can also use it to judge the quality or the value or the effectiveness of something. So here, it's finding out the figures and then working out how well they're doing, how effective they are.
Exactly. Measure as a verb, 측정하다. And the noun is measurement.
Yes. So we can also talk about talking in a measured way.
Oh, what does that mean?
When Sue reads the news, she always has a measured tone. She doesn't feel like she's sad or happy or angry or upset or excited. She tries to read the news, I think, quite neutrally.
Ah, okay. So
Very
that's
measured.
what measured as an adjective. Okay, well, here's the headline one more time. A recent study finds that Koreans' overall preparedness for retirement, measured across health, finances, relationships, and leisure, averages just under 70 out of 100. Right, let's move on to the second headline.
Iran's parliament has reportedly approved a plan to close the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil transit routes, in response to US airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites.
이란 의회가 미국의 이란 핵시설 폭격에 대응해 세계에서 가장 중요한 해상 원유 수송로 중 하나인 호르무즈 해협을 봉쇄하기로 의결한 것으로 알려졌습니다. This is a developing story and we're getting
Yes.
more and more updates as we go. But tell us what happened yesterday in this headline here.
Okay, well, here, after the US bombed nuclear facilities on the weekend, Iran has been looking at what measures to take. One was to give preemptive warning and then attack a US airbase in Qatar. The other thing that they have now approved is to close this very important channel between Iran and Oman. It's where a quarter of the world's sea-freighted oil goes through.
Yeah.
So if that is closed off, well, that's going to cause all sorts of problems for all sorts of countries and companies, but also it's going to make oil prices spike, which will affect, well, everybody around the world. We have no definite confirmation that this will happen. It may well change. Things may change. This is a developing story. It's ongoing, but certainly tensions are very high in Iran and the region.
네, 호르무즈 해협 우리 가끔 뉴스에서 전해드리죠. 예전에 거기가 이제 꽉 막혔던 적도
네.
있고요. 그런데 전 세계 원유의 one fifth, 5분의 1이 여기를 통과하기 때문에 여기가 만약에 봉쇄가 된다 그러면은요, 전 세계 기름값 많이 오를 겁니다.
네.
우리도 당연히 영향을 받을 것이고요. 그래서 상당히 우려스러운 일인데 어제 이란이 이렇게 우리가 하겠다라고 발표를 했던 상황 지금 전해드렸고 또 밤 사이에 여러 가지 업데이트가 있었거든요. 선생님 좀 전해주시겠어요?
Yeah, we had another attack by Israel on Iranian facilities, but then we also had President Trump just a few hours ago declaring that it's all fine and that, well, there's going to be peace in the Middle East. Israel has not commented. Iran has not commented. We don't know where we are. I think we'll find out later today. It's really difficult to know because this is uncharted territory. For the US to get involved in military strikes in Iran. And it's all a question of will Iran step back or will it retaliate? And what Israel will do because they are also pushing for further attacks on Iran.
시간 순서상으로 보게 되면은 우리 지금 헤드라인에서 얘기했던 호르무즈 해협 봉쇄하겠다라는 얘기가 어제 나왔고요. 물론 봉쇄가 된 건 아닙니다. 하겠다. 의결이 됐다라는 소식이 나왔는데 사실 이제 이란이 이런 얘기는 예전에도 한 적이 있지만 실제 봉쇄까지 이어지는 경우는 많지는 않아요. 근데 물론 지금 상황이 워낙에 심각하다 보니 실제로 봉쇄가 될지 안 될지 그것도 우려스러운데 밤사이 지금 말하신 것처럼 이란이 미군 기지에 미사일 공격을 가했습니다. 카타르에 있는 미군 기지에 미사일 공격을 가했어요. 굉장히 큰 그 공격은 아니었습니다.
네.
그래서 어떻게 보면은 경고성 공격이었다라고 볼 수 있겠죠.
그리고 먼저 미리 얘기했어요.
사전 통지도 있었습니다. 맞아요. 자, 그런 다음에 여기서 약간의 반전이 나오는데 트럼프 미국 대통령이 소셜미디어 truth를 이용하나요?
Truth Social.
Truth Social.
네.
예전에는 트위터를 많이 이용했었고 지금은 X인데 이제 트위터 못 쓰잖아요. 트럼프 대통령이.
다시 왔지만 안 쓰는 거예요.
안
Truth
쓰나요?
Social
지금은?
쓰는 거예요.
네. 그래서 본인이 만든 소셜미디어 사이트가 있어요. Truth라고. 근데 그 Truth를 통해서 뭐라고 했냐면은 트럼프 대통령이요. 이스라엘과 이란 사이에 완전하고 전면적인 휴전을 하는 것으로 완전한 합의가 이루어졌다. There's a complete and total ceasefire between Israel and Iran 이라고 트럼프 대통령이 소셜미디어에 주장을 하고 있습니다. 그러나 아직 이스라엘과 이란에서는 어떠한 공식 발표도 나오지 않고 있습니다. All right, well, let's have a look at the main expressions. Reportedly, everything is reported.
Oh, yeah, well, yes.
We're not there when we don't know for sure.
Exactly, and this is all about not having maybe the confirmation. If we use the word reportedly, it means we've got the info from somewhere. Whether that info is 100% accurate, we cannot tell you. A similar word that we sometimes hear is allegedly. And
Okay.
again, that's where we cannot confirm the truth.
Yep.
We do not have the whole facts in front of us.
And there's another one. Purportedly.
Purportedly, yes. I forgot about that one,
These
yes.
three are used quite a lot in the news.
Yeah, but I think reportedly feels more official.
Yes.
So when it's going to come from a state news agency or from a government announcement or something like that, when we're hearing it third hand or second hand, we use the term reportedly a lot.
맞습니다. 뉴스 전할 때는 팩트가 굉장히 중요하죠. 팩트 체킹도 당연히 중요하고. 그런데 이게 우리가 전달받은 내용들이 대부분이잖아요. 우리가 지금 뭐 실제 거기 이란에 가 있는 것도 아니고 그러다 보니까 이렇게 전해집니다. 라고 하는 영어 단어 reportedly
네.
이걸 쓰는 게 굉장히 중요해요. 이 단어 만약에 안 쓰면은 뒤에다가 according to foreign media reports 외신에 의하면 이렇게 또 붙여도 되죠.
네.
Okay, so loads of reports coming in and we are delivering these stories and the updates to you. Let's also have a look at the word root.
Not to be confused with what comes out of a tree into the ground. It is not
Yeah.
R-O-O-T, it is R-O-U-T-E.
Yes.
Pronounced route in British English, pronounced route in American English.
right.
And that means your path, your way, the plotted direction that you're going.
그래요. 우리도 외래어로 루트라고 하죠. 예, 영국식 발음이 바로 루트가 되겠고요. 북미권에서는 route라고
네.
하는데 예, 이게 이제 길, 경로라는 뜻이 되겠죠. The Hormuz Strait, 호르무즈 해협이 굉장히 중요한 그런 루트입니다. 어떤 루트냐면은 해상 원유 루트가 되겠어요.
Yeah, and we use route a lot in our everyday lives. For example, my route to EBS involves me going on the motorway, going on the highway.
Yes.
You know, you might ask, what's your route to school? Or what's the route to a certain tourist attraction?
Exactly. I think some highways in America are actually called route.
Yes, Route 66, I
Yeah.
think, was the most famous one used in music and pop culture.
There you go. All right, well, here's the headline one more time. Iran's parliament has reportedly approved a plan to close the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil transit routes, in response to US airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites. One other thing I wanted to mention here was that the word strait is S-T-R-A-I-T.
Oh, yes, important to note.
Okay.
Japan's weather agency has issued heat stroke alerts across much of the country as sweltering heat grips the archipelago amid an unusually early and intense heat wave.
이례적으로 일찍 찾아온 강력한 폭염 속에 찌는 듯한 더위가 일본 열도를 덮치자 일본 기상청이 전국 대부분 지역에 열사병 경보를 발령했습니다. We already have some casualties, don't we?
We do. I thought Korea was hot, but in fact in Japan it's been astonishingly hot. It reached in some areas 38.2 degrees Celsius. That's more than 10 degrees above the average. Tokyo, the highs of 34.8 degrees there. And it's the first time since they began recording the weather and recording the temperature that over 150 locations in the country experienced this extreme heat. 4 have died from heat stroke. I think the whole of Japan is worried and being very, very careful. The reason why this is happening is we have this Pacific high-pressure system has expanded much more than usual and therefore sent this extreme heat Japan's way.
네, 열사병으로 벌써 일본에서 4명의 사망자가 나왔다는 안타까운 소식까지 전해지고 있습니다. 그만큼 더운데요. heatstroke라는 단어를 먼저 좀 볼까요?
Yeah, heat stroke is when your body cannot cope with whatever temperature it is. Your body cannot regulate itself, cool you down enough. And so, well, the first signs are going to be a fever, then fainting, going unconscious, and sadly enough, it can result in death.
stroke라는 것 자체가 이렇게 기절하는 거죠.
Yeah, we talk about having a stroke is when you have a blood clot in the brain, for example, and you lose consciousness, but also you can lose control of your body. There are different kinds of strokes, but this is certainly one that's very, very dangerous.
맞아요. 그래서 그 뇌졸중이라는 의미도 있어요. 스트로크만 따로 보면은. 근데 heat stroke니까 열로 인해서 쓰러지는 이미지를 연상하시면 되겠고
Yeah.
우리말로 열사병이죠.
Sunstroke, I've also heard growing up, which I think
okay.
is similar, and that's been out in the sun and again being affected by the heat.
Got it. What about sweltering heat?
I hate this word, Sue, because it felt like that to me yesterday.
Yeah,
Sweltering
it's been
heat.
very hot recently.
When it's too hot, it's so hot that you do not feel comfortable. You feel uncomfortable.
Exactly. Sweltering, heat 같이 붙여서 숨막히는 더위, 무더위 뭐 이상이죠. 찌는 듯한 더위 이런 느낌인데요. The sweltering heat is gripping the Japanese archipelago.
네.
And Japan is an archipelago, which means loads of islands.
I love the word archipelago. I
Yeah.
think it sounds so beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Philippines is also an archipelago.
Yes,
it's not just one island.
No, the Galapagos Islands, I think, are an
Yes.
archipelago.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me
I
on
just
that.
know the turtles live there.
The tortoises.
Sorry, is it different?
The giant tortoises.
Okay, there you go.
Sue,
then.
we're going to have a talk about Darwin in the song break.
All right, so Korea is, of course, South Korea is a peninsula. The UK is an island. Would you say an island nation?
No, we're several islands.
it an
I don't know.
archipelago?
I don't know whether we count as an archipelago because the UK also contains Northern Ireland, which is part of an island. It contains Guernsey and Jersey, the Isle of Wight, the Shetland Isles.
I guess the British Isles would be an archipelago in that sense because it's not one island. In
yeah,
a way.
let's
kind of.
research and come back to it.
All right. 자, 그래요. 다도해, 군도라는 뜻의 아케펠라고가 들어가 있는데요. 이것도 이제 일본 열도를 여기서는 뜻하고 있습니다. 다시 한번 제가 읽어볼게요. Japan's weather agency has issued heat stroke alerts across much of the country as sweltering heat grips the archipelago amid an unusually early and intense heat wave.
Sue, breaking news. I've got confirmation the British Isles are an archipelago.
All right. Now let's move on to the next headline.
China has emerged as the global leader in electric vehicles, outpacing its competitors by at least 10 years, according to a BBC report.
중국이 세계 전기차 분야를 선도하고 있으며 경쟁국보다 최소 10년은 앞서 있다는 영국 BBC의 보도가 나왔습니다. Tell us more.
Well, with the fall of Tesla, we've seen sales drop. We've got China's BYD now taking over and leading the global electric vehicle market.
Has Tesla fallen?
Well, we've seen sales fall.
Okay.
No, I don't mean the company has fallen.
right.
I mean the sales
Okay.
have fallen. They've seen reduced sales. Well, China. It used to be famous for bicycles. I remember in the 80s watching clips of Chinese commuters, thousands of them on their bicycles. Now they are the world leader in EVs. They've got a domestic market of more than 1.4 billion people. And now China is looking to expand. And, yes, we have reports that suggest that it could be one of the biggest competitors when it comes to the EV industry.
Exactly. Now, China has outpaced its competitors.
Yes, and if you outpace your competitor or the person you're competing against, that means you go faster than them, or you grow faster than them, or you're increasing faster than them. You're doing better than them.
앞지르다, to outpace. Outnumber, 그러면은 숫자가 더 많다.
네.
So right now, we are outnumbered by our staff members outside. There are more staff members outside than the two of us inside the studio.
Sue.
Yes.
Calm down. I think you're using too much energy. You need to pace yourself.
Yes, pacing. We know pacing from running.
Yeah.
It's the speed. So outpacing is going faster. 앞지르다. And what's a competitor?
The person who is competing against you. If I play Sue at tennis, she will be my competitor. So any kind of competition, sports or games or in business, when you have rival businesses, we can talk about the competitor or competitors being the other ones who are doing the same thing and trying to do it better.
Do you play tennis, Paul?
No.
Oh, well,
Look at me, Sue.
I haven't played in
My
decades.
head is a tennis ball. I don't play tennis.
We're both going to be quite terrible competitors because we both can't play currently.
Yes, we're not going to compete very well.
No. 경쟁자죠. competitor. 경쟁, competition. 우리 뭐 대회도 competition이라고
네.
합니다만. 네. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. China has emerged as the global leader in electric vehicles, outpacing its competitors by at least 10 years, according to a BBC report. Now here's our final headline.
A study reveals that a simple blood test can identify patients most likely to develop severe Alzheimer's disease, potentially extending the window for clinical trial participation and early intervention.
일반적인 혈액 검사로 중증 알츠하이머병 발병 가능성이 높은 환자를 식별할 수 있다는 연구 결과가 나옴에 따라 향후 맞춤 치료 대상자 선별이나 치료 개입 시기를 조율하는 데 도움이 될 전망입니다. This is good news.
It is, and all they're testing for is the triglyceride glucose index, the TYG index. And by looking at that, they're able to tell if you have a high score, you're more likely to decline if you're in the early stages of Alzheimer's. Those who have lower TYG levels declined much slower, 4 times slower than those with the highest levels.
Yeah.
So they know this is one thing. Insulin resistance is the other that this research suggests. It's already been linked to Alzheimer's, but this makes it much clearer that insulin resistance may in fact accelerate the progression of Alzheimer's. It impairs the uptake of glucose, and it also contributes to the buildup of this toxic protein called amyloid, which again contributes to your Alzheimer's condition.
Well, any method where we can find signs of Alzheimer's and the early onset of Alzheimer's would be useful because this is such a dreadful disease. It's painful, obviously, for the person going through it, but also for the family and the loved ones around them as well. It's just so sad to watch.
Yeah, it's a really pernicious disease.
Yeah.
It hurts so many people with just one blow.
Yeah, exactly. I recently watched an old movie with Julianne Moore in it.
Yeah.
It's called Still Alice.
Yes.
And yeah, it's about a professor of linguistics, Alice. She's so smart and she uses words, obviously, as an expert. And then all of a sudden, she has early onset Alzheimer's. She loses her ability to talk fluently. She obviously loses her memory. And you see her going through this quite rapidly, in fact. And, how the family copes with that as well. It's very sad.
It is terribly sad. However, there has been a lot of progress and there are lots of trials going on trying to find not necessarily a cure, but a way to delay progress, a way to give people more time with the condition. And this is another stepping stone towards helping more people.
All right. So it could help identify Alzheimer's patients.
Yeah, meaning we can pinpoint them, we can find them out, we can say, there they are. If we identify something, we're saying, that's what it is.
찾다, 발견하다, that's identifying. So in the future, we might be able to identify Alzheimer's patients by a simple blood test.
Yeah.
And that would be a great way to prevent this disease from getting any worse. So people could intervene. There could be some intervention.
There could be an intervention. And when you make an intervention or you intervene, well, you stop things or prevent things from happening or you interrupt them.
Yeah.
So you do something to cause some kind of block or obstacle or cessation of whatever it may be.
네, 개입하는 거를요, intervening이라고 합니다. 명사 형태 intervention인데요. early intervention이라는 것은 이제 그 조기에 개입을 해가지고 치료를 한다든지 예방을 한다라는 의미가 있죠. 우리 질병에 관해서 말할 때는. So early intervention is good because then you can prevent this from getting any worse.
Yeah, exactly. There's also, when we use an intervention, if we have an intervention for someone, it's when they're in trouble, when they have some addiction or some kind of issue, and their family and friends and doctor come together and say, hey, stop.
Right.
We need to talk to you. You need to get some help. And this is a phrase that you'll often find in dramas, but also in the news, talking about times when people need to step in to help someone who's in trouble.
Stepping in is a great another expression for this. 그러니까 질병이 더 악화되는 것, 내지는 어떤 안 좋은 습관이 더욱더 악화되는 것을 조기에 막기 위해서 주변에서 intervening 하면은 좋죠. 그런 표현을 많이 씁니다, 영어에서요. 또 이 헤드라인 안에 들어왔던 단어들 중에 window가 있는데 창문이 아니고요. 이건 어떤 기간을 얘기하고 있습니다.
Yeah.
So you could extend the window for clinical trial participation.
Exactly. So we talk about the window for booking tickets to this concert is from this date to that date, or the window for making an appointment with this specialist will be for the next 3 days.
In this case, clinical trial, 임상시험, 시험이라든지 여러 가지 이제 치료를 받을 수 있는 기간이 좀 늘어난다. The window can be extended. 다시 한번 제가 읽어보겠습니다. A study reveals that a simple blood test can identify patients most likely to develop severe Alzheimer's disease, potentially extending the window for clinical trial participation and early intervention. Well, that's it for the headlines this morning with Paul Matthews.
Consumer sentiment in the nation improved for a third straight month in June, reaching its most optimistic level in 4 years, while housing market expectations rose to their highest point since October 2021.
국내 소비자 심리 지수가 4월부터 석 달 연속 상승하면서 4년 만에 가장 낙관적인 수준에 도달했으며 주택 가격 전망 지수도 2021년 10월 이후 최고치를 기록했습니다. Let's have a look at the figures.
Yeah. So I guess people are feeling a bit more optimistic about how the economy or how, the housing market will be and how the economy will be. So this is according to the Bank of Korea. And they're saying that June's composite consumer sentiment index, it hit 108.7, and that's up 6.9 points from May, and that's the strongest reading since June of 2021, and it indicates that, of course, optimism outweighs pessimism.
Right.
And the BOK is crediting the rise to ease political uncertainty following the presidential election and growing expectations for stimulus for the new government. And the economic outlook sub-index surged 16 points to 107, while the housing price outlook rose 9 points to 120, which was the highest since October of 2021. And officials are saying that the numbers reflect growing public confidence in upcoming economic policies.
So the consumer sentiment index, you said, was around 108.
Yes.
And you mentioned that any reading above 100 means optimists outnumber pessimists.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing words with out in them quite a lot these days.
Yeah.
We had, I think, outperform, outpace, outdo. So here, outnumber also means there's more. So there's more optimists than pessimists.
Or
if it's
I think I
above
said
100.
outweighs. So
Outweigh.
yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's the same thing, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of words that have out in them, if it's a verb, mean that there's more.
There's
more
more.
of that.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Yes.
Faster, higher, bigger, whatever it is. Okay, so reading above 100 is what we're seeing here. There are indeed more optimists than pessimists. What is it to be optimistic?
Well, to be optimistic means that you are hopeful and confident, especially about something that will happen in the future.
낙관하는, optimistic. We often talk about seeing the cup half full or
Yes.
half empty.
Yeah.
That determines whether or not you have an optimistic view or a pessimistic view. So I think we're quite familiar with this word.
Yeah.
optimist가 낙관론자, optimistic, 낙관적인, 낙관하는. What about market expectations?
Market expectations. So market expectations refer to the collective anticipations and predictions that are held by market participants. So these would be investors, analysts, and economists about future economic conditions and market performance.
Market, 시장, expectations, 기대감. 그래서요, 그냥 그대로 이제 번역을 하면 됩니다. 시장의 기대감, 이렇게, 직역을 할 수도 있겠고요. 여기서는 어떻게 볼까요? The market expectations rose to the highest in roughly 4 years since October 2021. 이것도 housing market니까 주택 시장, 주택 가격에 대한 기대감, 전망치 아니면 전망 지수를 말하네요. housing이 앞에 붙어서 주택 시장, 주택 가격을 말합니다. All right, well, here's the headline one more time. Consumer sentiment in the nation improved for a third straight month in June, reaching its most optimistic level in 4 years, while housing market expectations rose to their highest point since October 2021. Here's our next headline.
A building known as 관월당 and believed to be a royal shrine from the Joseon dynasty has returned to Korea about 100 years after it was taken to Japan.
조선시대 왕실 사당으로 추정되는 관월당이 일제강점기 일본으로 반출된 지 100여 년 만에 우리나라로 돌아왔습니다. All right, well, tell us more.
Yeah, so it's definitely good news. So
Yes.
it's a wooden structure and it's known as 관월당, and it was repatriated to the country on Monday, and it was repatriated under an agreement with Kotoku-in, which is a Buddhist temple in Kamakura that had housed it for decades. Japanese temple head Takao Sato reportedly facilitated the return, believing the shrine belonged to its place of origin. And this actually marks the first time an entire Korean building has been returned from overseas.
And people might think, how do you move a massive temple
Right.
from one country to another? But they
Take it apart.
they took it apart and now they have to reassemble it.
Yeah.
It's actually in roughly about 5,000 pieces right now. It's like a puzzle, right?
Like a
Yeah.
Lego puzzle.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I believe currently these 4,982 pieces are stored in a safe area in Paju, and then soon they're going to be reassembled, put together, and we'll have the complete form of 관월당.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, available for us to see.
Yeah.
So the shrine, it dates back to the late Joseon period, and it features traditional royal architecture, and it measures about 5.4 meters wide and 3.6 meters deep. And experts think that it was originally gifted in 1924 and later donated to this temple in the 1930s. And Korean heritage officials have hailed the move as a historic step in restoring lost cultural assets.
So it's not massive, but
Yeah.
it's still, it's
still
sizable.
5 meters,
5
yeah.
meters, wide, I think. And how many meters deep?
3.6 meters deep.
Okay,
yeah.
so roughly about 4 meters deep. So I'm seeing the picture of how it looked in Japan. And as you said, it's been 100 years or so
Yeah.
since it was taken away from Korea and now it's returned. And it's the first time this sort of historical artifact of this size
Yeah.
has been returned in its entirety, I
Right,
believe.
right.
Because oftentimes it's been damaged or destroyed in some way. So we get parts of things
Right.
returned. But this time it's the full
Building.
Yeah. All right. This is very exciting news.
It is.
It's believed to be a royal shrine.
That's right.
Let's have a look at those expressions.
Yeah, so if something is believed to be something, it means that it's thought or considered to be true, real, or existing, even though it may not be definitively known or proven. So
Yep.
it indicates a level of uncertainty or supposition rather than absolute certainty.
뭐뭐로 여겨지다. It's believed to be 사당으로 추정이 되거든요. 그래서 it's believed to be a royal shrine.
Yeah.
So 그냥 사당이 아니라 왕실 사당,
Right.
royal shrine. Let's have a look at the word shrine.
Right. Shrine. So shrine, you might have heard this in I guess another sort of aspect because it's a place people use it to refer to places that are regarded as holy because of its association with some sort of divinity or a sacred person or a relic. So it's marked by a building or other construction. In this case, it's kind of more of a place that's associated with containing some sort of memorabilia of a
Right.
particular revered person or thing. In this case, it might have been a revered royal person. We don't know. They'll probably have to do more research on it.
네, 일본에는 이런 shrine이 참 많습니다. 우리는 신사 이렇게도 부르죠. 그래서 뭐 이렇게 공원처럼 꾸며놓은 곳들도 있고요. It is basically a sort of memorial site,
Yeah.
as you said, and or it could be more of a religious site depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, Japan has a lot of these, and some of those are better known than others. And they're kind of tourist attractions too.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
I think this is really good because, as you mentioned, it is the first time that like a building in itself is being returned, and they will be able to do a lot of research on it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, here's the headline one more time. A building known as 관월당 and believed to be a royal shrine from the Joseon dynasty has returned to Korea about 100 years after it was taken to Japan.
The U.S. National Weather Service has issued several extreme heat warnings and advisories as a dangerous and prolonged wave of high temperatures and humidity blankets much of the central and eastern parts of the country.
미국 중부와 동부 지역 대부분의 위험한 수준의 고온다습한 날씨가 장기간 지속되자 미국 기상청이 수차례 폭염 경보 및 주의보를 발령했습니다. Day in and day out,
Yep.
this whole week, we have stories about how hot the weather is.
Yeah.
Tell us about the U.S.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like this June has also been unseasonably hot
Yeah.
for us here too. But they're saying that these heat waves, it's dangerous and it's been prolonged and it's gripping much of the central and eastern U.S. with extreme heat warnings issued for major cities like Chicago and New York. And over the weekend, they said that several states recorded their hottest temperatures of the year, including over 104 degrees Fahrenheit in the states of Utah and South Dakota. And the National Weather Service says cities like Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and New York, these are all along the eastern coast. And they're saying that it could approach or surpass 100 degrees Fahrenheit this week, with heat index values factoring in humidity hitting up to 115 degrees Fahrenheit in some regions.
Which is around...
It's probably about like over 30 degrees.
Right.
Yeah, let me check. Yeah.
그래요. 미국에서 지금 특히 동부 지역에 날씨가 많이 덥다라는 얘기 하셨습니다. 이제 동부 쪽에 있는 아까 뭐 시카고, 그다음에 또 신시나티, 필라델피아, 워싱턴 DC, 뉴욕시티 얘기를 하셨죠.
Okay, I was incorrect. So 115 degrees. This was factoring in humidity, right?
Okay.
So that's how you would feel it. It's 46 degrees Celsius.
What?
Yeah, so that's extremely hot. 100 degrees Fahrenheit is 37 degrees.
그래요.
Yeah.
체감으로는 한 46도 정도 느껴진답니다. 워낙 습해서.
Yeah.
아, 그럼 얼마나 끈적끈적하고 후텁지근한 날씨예요.
And the really bad part is it's kind of similar to how we have the summer nights in the monsoon season where
Right.
the nighttime temperatures don't fall. And
do they have something called tropical nights in America?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. And I
think so either.
remember back in the day, we didn't even have air conditioners. Like when I lived along the East Coast.
Like Europe then.
Yeah, it wasn't this bad. But they're saying that nighttime temperatures will still remain high, like us, and it's going to offer little relief and increasing health risks, especially for vulnerable populations like the elderly or children. So New York City officials are urging caution, calling the city's heat the deadliest weather threat. So residents are advised to stay hydrated. They're telling them to stay indoors, limit their outdoor activities, and check on elderly neighbors as conditions continue into midweek.
Oh my goodness. Yesterday we had a story about the UK and how people in the UK, most houses don't have ACs, but they're thinking about it now because the weather is getting hotter and hotter. However, the good thing is the evenings in the UK are actually cool.
Yeah.
So, you just said in America, the evenings are still hot, and so it offers little relief.
Right.
Yeah, when that happens, we know very well that it's just
Unbearable.
Unbearable,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I meant to say. Let's have a look at wave of high temperatures and humidity.
Yeah, so we usually call this a heat wave. So when we have a wave of something, it's like a period where something abnormal lasts for a long time. So when we say it's a wave of high temperatures, it would be, like I said, a heat wave. So it's a period of abnormally hot and humid weather that is prolonged, and it's significantly warmer than the typical temperature range for a given region at that time of year.
Exactly. A wave of something, 연속적인 무언가, high temperatures and humidity, 높은 기온 그리고 습한 걸 말하죠. 그래서 고온다습한 현상이 계속 이어진다. A wave of high temperatures and humidity. And to blanket.
Yep.
It's a verb.
It is a verb, yeah. So when you blanket something, it means you're covering something completely with a thick layer of something. In this case, you can't really see it, because we're talking about the weather. So it's going to be humidity and high temperatures, but it means that it's going to be covering or affecting that entire region.
Right, because blanket is essentially 이불.
Yeah.
But to blanket as a verb means 뒤덮다, 완전히 덮다. So in the wintertime, we talk about snow blanketing large areas. But right now it's the summertime and the heat wave or the heat is blanketing many parts of the world, not just America. In fact, one of our listeners from Canada says Toronto was 37 degrees yesterday.
Toronto is up north.
I didn't know that Toronto could get so hot.
Me neither.
My goodness.
Wow.
그래요. As we said earlier on, 정말 견딜 수 없는 더위. It's unbearable or insufferable.
Yeah.
That's what the whole world is going through right now in the northern hemisphere.
Yes.
I think down under, though, in Australia, they're probably enjoying
Winter.
cold weather.
Yeah. Well,
If you're tuning in from down under or in the
Let us
southern
know.
hemisphere in general, let us know.
well, I know when I was in Melbourne around this time, probably July, it's very wet.
Yeah.
The temperatures don't drop to like the negatives. It's usually in the tens, but it's very wet and chilly.
I got it. All right, well, here's the headline one more time. The U.S. National Weather Service has issued several extreme heat warnings and advisories as a dangerous and prolonged wave of high temperatures and humidity blankets much of the central and eastern parts of the country. Now let's move on to the next headline.
Greece is set to introduce next month a cruise passenger tax of 1 to 20 euros per person, depending on the season and destination, as part of a strategic effort to curb over-tourism and improve infrastructure on its most popular islands, such as Mykonos and Santorini.
그리스가 다음 달부터 크루즈선 관광객에게 계절과 목적지에 따라 1인당 1유로에서 20유로 사이의 관광세를 부과할 예정입니다. 이는 미코노스와 산토리니 등 사람들이 가장 많이 찾는 섬들의 과잉 관광 문제를 해소하고 인프라를 확충하기 위한 전략적 조치로 보입니다. All right, tell us more.
Yeah, so they're saying that the tax will vary by season and location, with the highest rates charged during the peak summer months. Officials expect the move to generate up to 100 million euros annually, with funds earmarked for improving port infrastructure, municipal services, and sustainable tourism practices. And the new policy comes amid growing concerns that cruise traffic is overwhelming island communities and damaging local resources. So the fee will apply to all cruise passengers disembarking at Greek ports, with lower rates in the off-season and at less visited destinations. And it's not just Greece, because they're joining cities like Venice. I remember Venice saying that they were going to incorporate some sort of tourism tax. Barcelona has been adopting such measures, which is signaling some sort of shift towards quality over quantity in managing tourism.
Well, it's the end of June right now, so I guess we're heading into peak season.
Yes.
And it's going to be 20
20
euros
during
added to everything else.
Peak season, which is July, August, and September. And they say that it's going to decrease to 12 euros during the shoulder season. So from
That's in
April,
between, right?
April, May, and October. And then it's going to drop way down to 4 euros in the winter season. So November, December, and then the first 3 months of the year.
Got it. Okay, so this extra fee, it depends on the season.
Yeah, it depends on the season, and it depends on whether this island is really popular or not. So when something depends on something, it means that it's affected by someone or something, or it has some sort of condition. So it's determined or decided by something.
Depending on A. A에 따라 다르다는 얘기겠죠. 계절에 따라 부과되는 관광세가 다릅니다. 적게는 1유로에서 많게는 20유로. 근데 이 depend라는 단어 우리가 참 많이 써요.
Yeah.
So for example, I might say, I might go and watch that movie this weekend, but it depends. Which means it depends on the situation or how I feel, the weather, things that go on in the house. But I don't have to say it depends on whatever.
You can just say it depends.
It depends.
It means it's unclear. It's open. I'm not sure.
우리말로 하면은 봐서 뭐 할 수도 있고 안 할 수도 있고 그럴 때 영어로는 it depends 라고 합니다. What about curb?
Yeah, curb. So this is also a verb and it means to restrain or to keep in check, to control or limit something that is not wanted. So for Greece, they are trying to limit the number of tourists that come in by, well, not really limit, but maybe try to earn a little bit more so that they can pay attention to their infrastructure and, like I said before, pay more attention to the quality in managing tourism rather than the quantity.
그래요. curb라는 동사가 무언가 억제하거나 제한한다라는 뜻이 있습니다. So I think of curbing your appetite,
Yes.
which is something I need to do, and it's very hard sometimes.
It is.
But they say, drinking plenty of water before your meal,
yeah.
that helps to curb your
Curb
appetite.
your appetite, yeah.
Some people say having dessert first curbs your appetite. But then again, having that much sugar is not good for you.
Yeah.
So that's, maybe trying to be funny. But
Lots of different ways.
yeah, exactly. 뭔가 억제하다, C-U-R-B, curb, 동사. All right, well, here's the headline again. Greece is set to introduce next month a cruise passenger tax of 1 to 20 euros per person, depending on the season and destination, as part of a strategic effort to curb over-tourism and improve infrastructure on its most popular islands, such as Mykonos and Santorini. Now here's our next headline.
An extremely rare P blood type found in fewer than 1 in a million people and first identified in 1927 by Austrian biologist Karl Landsteiner has been discovered in China.
전 세계적으로 극히 드문 P형 혈액형이 중국에서 발견됐습니다. 이 혈액형은 1927년에 오스트리아 출신 병리학자 카를 란트슈타이너가 처음 학계에 보고한 것으로 100만 분의 1보다도 적은 확률로 나타나는 것으로 알려졌습니다. Blood types. So
Yes.
we normally think of A, B, and O.
Yeah.
But there's P as well.
I have never heard of P.
Well, obviously, because it's so rare.
It's very
I've never heard
rare.
of it either.
Yeah. So they say that it's incredibly rare, and it's even rarer than the RH negative, which we think is very rare
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So they say that it's been discovered at a blood station in Wenshan, Yunnan province, and during routine screening, doctors detected unusual antibody reactions in a donor with type O blood. And so they sent the sample to Guangzhou for further analysis, and experts confirmed the presence of anti-PP1PK antibodies, identifying it as the extremely rare P blood type, which is a condition seen in fewer than 1 in a million people worldwide. Wow. So they say that it's the first time this blood type has been found among the station's nearly 570,000 donations. And as we mentioned before, it was first discovered back in 1927, but the P blood type remains one of the rarest globally. And officials say that the finding enhances China's rare blood type database and could aid future detection and treatment efforts.
P형 혈액형이 발견이 됐습니다. 매우 드문 혈액형이죠. All right, let's have a look at this expression. It's extremely rare.
Yeah. So something that's rare is already not common. And therefore, when something's not common, we often think it's very interesting or valuable.
Yeah.
So when something is extremely rare, it's something that occurs or exists with very low frequency or in very small numbers, significantly more so than what is considered simply rare.
Rare in itself means that it's hard to find. Extremely rare is really, really, really hard to find.
Yep.
극히 희귀한 것을 extremely rare라고 하고요. Blood type. That's 혈액형, right?
Yeah, blood type. We can also say blood group. So it's a classification system that allows your healthcare providers like doctors to determine whether your blood is compatible with another person. So usually we talk about blood type A, B, and O.
Yeah, exactly. 혈액형을 blood type라고 합니다. 희한하게도 우리나라에서는 길 가다가 어느 누구에게 물어봐도 자신의 혈액형을 99.9%는 알 거예요.
Yeah.
그죠? 외국에서는 거의 다
one
몰라요.
knows.
왜냐하면은 이거를 우리나라에서처럼 체계적으로 이렇게 체크를 해가지고 서로 물어보고 기억하고 이러는 것도 없고 뭐 체크를 했었어도 그게 이제 병원 기록에는 남아있지만 별로 신경을 안 쓰고 살아서 모르는 것 같더라고요.
Yeah, but it's very important. You know, let's say that you were in an accident and you needed a blood transfusion.
Yeah, of course.
There is a chance that you might know it wrong or they might give you the wrong blood and you could die. It's very dangerous.
All right. Well, here's the headline again. An extremely rare P blood type found in fewer than 1 in a million people and first identified in 1927 by Austrian biologist Karl Landsteiner has been discovered in China. Well, that's it for the headlines this morning with Karen Choi.
The number of babies born in the country rose at the fastest pace in 34 years in April from a year earlier, driven by a rise in marriages and demographic changes, according to Statistics Korea.
우리나라 4월 출생아 수가 지난해 같은 달보다 8.7% 증가해 34년 만에 최고 증가율을 보였습니다. 이는 혼인이 많아지고 30대 초반 여성 인구가 늘어난 데 따른 것으로 통계청은 분석했습니다. So we're looking at births in April only.
Yes.
Okay, tell us more.
Yeah, compared to the year before, a total of 20,717 babies were born this past April. That is an 8.7% increase from the year prior, in which there was just 19,059 babies born. So this is a significant increase from the year before. And as mentioned, that 8.7% difference, that is the steepest year-on increase dating back to 1991. So a very long period of time. And they are saying that a lot more people are getting married as well. And they're finding because of the rate of marriage increase, we're having more babies.
그래요. 이제 4월 기준으로 보고 있는 겁니다. 물론 작년 10월부터 계속해서 그 전년 대비 출산율 그 증가 폭이 꽤 높기는 해요. 13%, 14% 이렇게 10월부터 쭉 기록을 하다가 2월에는 다소 좀 떨어졌는데 자 이제 4월 달에만 집중을 하게 되면은 2만 명을 넘어섰고요. 그 다음에는 34년 만에 가장 큰 증가폭을 기록했습니다. All right, so good news, of course, for a country that's aging and we don't have enough babies as it is.
Absolutely. And a lot more marriages as well. They also are saying that April marked the 13th consecutive month that marriages have gone up as well. So a lot more people significantly are getting married more.
All right, let's have a look at the expression at the fastest pace.
The pace is the rate or speed of which you do something. And the fastest pace, meaning this is the fastest rate that it has been increasing. And you hear this word a lot in running races or especially long distance races. So things like marathons, you'll hear people say, pace yourself, meaning go at a correct pace. Don't go too fast at the beginning because then you're going to be tired and then the rest of the race is going to be difficult. So pace yourself, meaning go a good steady speed rather than, expelling too much of your energy at the beginning.
페이스 조절해라. Pace yourself. 그 다음에 우리가 얼마 전 배운 표현이죠. To outpace someone. That means to go faster than them. So your pace is faster than their pace. And here we have at the fastest pace as a noun, which means at the fastest speed, I guess. Or in this case,
Rate.
rate. 그렇습니다. 가장 빠른 속도로 가장 빠른 그런 어떤 증가폭, 큰 증가폭을 보였다. What about demographic changes?
A demographic is the way that you might divide or distinguish a group. So the most common thing we look at, let's say with people, is you look at maybe demographic in terms of age group. So how can we divide this group of people? Well, let's divide it by age group. Or it might be by your race. It might be by your culture. It might be by your income.
Right.
So it's how you're going to separate and group people into different groups.
And also, the different stats that go with races or gender or things like that. 자, demographic는 인구 구조상의 뭐뭐뭐죠. 우리가 demography 하면은 인구 통계학인데요. Demographic changes, 인구 구조상의 변화를 얘기하고 있습니다. Well, let's have a look at this headline one more time. The number of babies born in the country rose at the fastest pace in 34 years in April from a year earlier, driven by a rise in marriages and demographic changes, according to Statistics Korea. Let's move on to the second headline.
Rose of K-pop girl group Blackpink has broken her own record as the longest charting K-pop solo artist on the US Billboard Hot 100 with her latest solo single APT featuring Bruno Mars ranking 25th in its 35th week.
걸그룹 블랙핑크의 로제가 브루노 마스와 함께 한 최신 솔로 싱글 아파트로 미국 빌보드 메인 싱글 차트 핫 100에서 25위를 기록하면서 35주 연속 진입에 성공해 K-pop 사상 최장기간 핫 100 진입 기록을 자체 경신했습니다. So the previous record was also held by Rosé, I assume?
Essentially, because it was 34 weeks, so now it's 35 weeks. So
I see.
she's lasted another week, and basically every week that she's still on the Hot 100 chart, then she'll be breaking her own record again.
Yeah.
And seeing how she's still ranked 25th, I think this could be a long, long time that she's still on those charts.
Yeah. I don't know who it was, but I watched an interview of a Hollywood actress recently, and she said, my daughter's favorite song these days is Apate. And she's, a Caucasian Hollywood actress. I forget who it was. And, it doesn't really matter which country you're from, whether you speak the language or not. Everyone loves Apate.
I wonder if it's Emma Stone because
No, she does. Does she have a daughter?
I don't know if she does, but the one thing I do know is that she's a huge K-pop fan.
Right. I don't think it was
she came
her,
out
but-
and she's said it on talk shows that it's one of her devices that she's addicted to is
Yeah.
K-pop, and that was like maybe 10 years ago.
There you go. All right, so Rosé has broken her own record.
Yeah, and if you break a record, then it's like a personal best or the best of something. In this particular case, it was her own record, so she's improved on what she did before. So prior to this, I think the highest, the previous record was held by, it was a BTS member, Jimin, and his song had stayed on for 33 weeks. So that was the previous record. So she broke that record by making it 34 weeks, and then she broke her own record by making it 35. So as mentioned, she's improved upon a record that she already set.
Break one's record or break a record. 기록을 깨는 거죠. 그런데 break her own record인 이유는 가장 최근까지 그 빌보드 핫 100에서 오랫동안 진입한 가수의 기록을 누가 가지고 있었느냐? 바로 본인, 로제였습니다. 근데 그것을 또 경신했으니까요. 자체 경신. She broke her own record. And she's a solo artist.
A solo artist meaning that you do something on your own. Solo meaning one, typically one person. And an artist could be all sorts of different things. When we think of an artist, we typically think of someone who draws or paints or makes something like that. But we often use this in things like music as well. And when we talk about a solo act, then we usually call them a solo artist as opposed to being in a group like Blackpink.
Exactly. A solo artist. 바로 이제 우리도 뭐 솔로 가수라고 표현을 하는데요. 혼자 노래를 부르고 혼자 하는 가수를 말하죠. 어떤 것이든 그런 이제 혼자 하는 공연 아니면은 노래 이런 게 있을 때는 이제 솔로를 많이 씁니다. 그래서 클래시컬 뮤직에서도 마찬가지죠. 바이올린 솔로 그러면은 바이올린 독주. 뭐 피아노 솔로 그러면 피아노 독주가 되겠죠. So, solo artist, Rosé. And our listener has helped me out 방영숙님이 프리앙카 초프라가 최근에 토크쇼에 나와서 얘기했다고. 아, 그랬던 것 같아요. 맞아요. 프리앙카 초프라, do you know who she is? She's married to
No.
Nick Jonas of the Jonas Brothers.
Okay.
She's from India, but she's a Hollywood actress. And she says her daughter loves listening to 아파트.
Okay.
There you go. All right, well, here's the headline again. Rosé of K-pop girl group Blackpink has broken her own record as the longest charting K-pop solo artist on the US Billboard Hot 100 with her latest solo single, 아파트, featuring Bruno Mars, ranking 25th in its 35th week.
A surprising study released by France's food safety agency found that drinks including water, soda, beer, and wine sold in glass bottles contain more microplastics than those in plastic bottles.
프랑스 식품환경노동위생안전청이 생수, 탄산음료, 맥주, 와인 등 시판음료를 대상으로 연구를 진행한 결과 놀랍게도 유리병에 든 제품이 플라스틱 병에 든 제품보다 미세 플라스틱을 더 많이 포함하고 있는 것으로 나타났습니다. Does this mean we have to stay away from glass bottles as well now?
I mean, it's crazy to think this. We've done a lot of stories recently about microplastics in plastic bottles and stuff like that. So to hear of this, to be honest, is very shocking and alarming.
Yeah.
And they're saying that, it could be up to 50 times higher than the rate detected in plastic bottles or even metal cans from some of the research that was being done on this. They're saying that it might have been from the caps on the inside. So I guess when they're opening it with an opener, maybe some of the microplastics from the caps get into the liquids. But certainly some very disturbing news. And hopefully we'll have some more research on it to find out how exactly this is happening.
Absolutely. Well, it is indeed surprising. Let's have a look at that word, surprising.
Yeah, something that is surprising is something that you did not expect. So your expectation was that, well, obviously there's going to be more microplastic in plastic bottles, right? But it's like, what? No, there's actually more in glass bottles? Well, that's shocking. It's surprising.
Yeah.
It's different than what I thought was going to be the case.
Exactly. 굉장히 놀랍다. 전혀 생각하지 못했다. It's surprising 라고 하고요. 우리 이제 깜짝 생일 파티 할 때는 surprise
Yeah.
이러면서 우리말로는 뭐라고 할까요? 짜잔. 아니면 그냥 바로 생일 축하해 뭐 이런 식으로 하겠죠. 근데 영어에서는 이제 surprise라고 먼저 합니다. 이제 그다음에는 include.
If you are including things, then these are all the things that I'm going to mention coming up. The way the context of the use of it found that drinks including water, soda, beer, and wine. So what I'm going to say after including, these are the things that I'm actually talking about in the case here. So when you say including, it's inclusive of.
Including A, B, C, and D. This is how you normally use this expression. 그래서 이런 것들을 포함하여 할 때 including. All right, well, here's the headline again. A surprising study released by France's Food Safety Agency found that drinks, including water, soda, beer, and wine, sold in glass bottles contain more microplastics than those in plastic bottles. Let's move on to the next headline.
New research shows that Antarctic seal populations are drastically declining due to melting sea ice, with Weddell seals and Antarctic fur seals decreasing by 54% and 47% respectively since 1977.
남극 해빙이 녹으면서 그곳에 서식하는 물범 개체수가 급격하게 감소하고 있다는 연구 결과가 나온 가운데 이 중 웨델 물범과 남극 물개는 1977년 이후 각각 54%와 47%가 감소한 것으로 조사됐습니다. Oh no. We don't want to see these animals go extinct.
Oh, certainly not. And they're saying that the numbers have gone down by 54% and 47% for at least two of these species. And they have been kind of tracking the ice and how much ice is around in comparison from back in 1982. And they've also, been cross-referencing that with the seal population going back to 1977. And they've discovered that they seem to have a causality, but perhaps we'll see.
All right, let's have a look at drastically declining or drastically doing anything, really.
Drastically, something that's drastically changing is not a small or slight change. It's a very, very big and very noticeable, perhaps even surprising change as well.
Drastically is an adverb here. 급격히가 되겠고요. And if you use it as an adjective, you would say drastic. So there could be drastic changes or something could be drastically changing. Now, what about melting ice or melting sea ice?
Melting sea ice, so we're talking about the ocean or seawater that is frozen, of course, as ice. And the process of going from a solid to a liquid, we call that melting. The opposite, of course, would be freezing if you go from liquid to a solid. But in this case, we're going from a solid to a liquid. So you have ice in the Antarctic area. And as it melts, then it turns into seawater or just water, I guess.
Exactly. This is the literal meaning, 녹는다, melting sea ice, 녹아내리는 해빙. But we use it figuratively too, like, oh, you've melted my heart, or my heart, And we did the same in Korean. 마음이 녹았어요. I think so. 그렇게 하는 것 같아요. It's like very similar expressions. All right, well, here's the headline one more time. New research shows that Antarctic seal populations are drastically declining due to melting sea ice, with Weddell seals and Antarctic fur seals decreasing by 54% and 47% respectively since 1977. Let's move on to the final headline.
World-famous actor Tom Cruise is set to receive an honorary Academy Award for Lifetime Achievement at this year's Governor's Awards in November, marking his first Oscar after 4 previous nominations.
세계적인 배우 톰 크루즈가 올해 11월에 열리는 거버넌스 어워즈에서 아카데미 공로상을 받게 됐습니다. 그는 과거 아카데미상 후보에 4차례 오른 적이 있지만 수상은 이번이 처음입니다. So, over the past 30 plus years that he's been an actor, he's never won an Oscar.
He has never won an Oscar. He's
Just
been
sort of assumed he had.
Yeah, no, he's been nominated a few times.
Yeah.
I think he was nominated for Born on the 4th of July for Best Actor, also for Jerry Maguire, and for Supporting Actor, he was also nominated in Magnolia. And I think he was also nominated for Top Gun Maverick, but that was as a producer, I think, for not as the actor.
Yeah, nonetheless, he will finally take home an Oscar. Tell us more.
Yeah, so like I said, he's going to be receiving a Lifetime Award, a Lifetime Achievement Award, and he's not the only one. There are other people that are going to be receiving this, and this is sort of something that's not going to, like when we think of the Academy Awards, and he's not going to have that moment, which is usually in February for the actual Academy Awards. This is going to be done in the fall, and it's going to be not televised. It's not going to be in front of people, so we're probably not even going to see it. We might hear about it in the newspaper that he actually received his award, but this is sort of the precursor of it is going to happen, which is why we're hearing about it now.
Okay, well, you said he's going to win a Lifetime Achievement Award. What is a Lifetime Achievement?
A Lifetime Achievement is something that you've done over the course of your life, and the awards that people receive for this, it's something that they've done great for a very long period of time. So it's not like just something brief or like like, oh, I was salesman of the year. Well, it's just 1 year. But
Right.
maybe if you're with a company for 25, 30, maybe even like 40 or 50 years, then you might receive an award from your company for a lifetime achievement award with that company. So something that's been done over a long period of time that's worthy of praise. We'll often hear things like a Hall of Fame with sports. They have a Hall of Fame for most professional sports leagues, and those are usually for people that have done like lifetime achievement things.
Yeah, absolutely. 자, 여기서 말하는 lifetime achievement는 평생의 업적이에요. 그래서 lifetime achievement award 소식을 종종 듣게 되는데요. 어떤 공로상이라고 보면 되겠습니다. What about previous nominations?
Previous is before, and nominations with the Academy Awards, you can think of it as being like a finalist, right? You didn't win the award, but you're among the 4, 5, 8, whatever number of people that are being considered. And that's what a nomination actually is. I mean, sometimes we think of it as being like a finalist, but what it really means is that somebody thinks that you're worthy, and they're saying, well, I think we should consider this person. So you're in consideration as people will nominate someone, and then you vote on the people that are nominated.
후보로 지명이 됐었다라고 했을 때 someone has been nominated라고 하죠. 그래서 이런 previous 이전에 nomination이 4번이나 있었습니다. 그렇지만 실제로 상을 받은 적은 없는데요. 이번에 35년 만에 아카데미 상, 오스카라고 하죠. 오스카를 받게 된다라는 소식입니다. Here's the headline again. World-famous actor Tom Cruise is set to receive an honorary Academy Award for Lifetime Achievement at this year's Governor's Awards in November, marking his first Oscar after 4 previous nominations. Well, that's it for the headlines with Jason Lee.